Okay, I want to welcome whoever's here and whoever's going to be watching this later. This presentation is being offered to you by the Santa Barbara County America's Job Center of California. My name is Melina Sardar, and I will be the facilitator today of this workshop titled The Fundamentals of Emotional Intelligence and Communication in the Workplace. This is generally a 3 to 5 hour training that I do, but I have like condensed it into giving you the main points in 1 hour so that hopefully you can walk away with some actual, hands-on insights of yourself and benefits. So I've been doing this work for 20 some years. I've been a facilitator of different workshops locally here in California, LA specifically. And I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. I run a coaching business, as well as I do trainings for corporations and companies. But really, my passion started 20 years ago. I'll probably get a chance to share my story in a little bit. But it was really the changes that happened in my life based on some of these emotional intelligence trainings that I did and transformational seminars that I participated, that I continued my education, got my master's in psychology to become a marriage and family therapist. And along the way, after I finished my education and my hours, I decided that I just wanted to open a more independent office as a life coach. So that's just me in a nutshell, and just a little bit background of who I am and what qualifies me to speak on this topic and share some of this information with you. The goal today really is to focus on emotional intelligence and self-awareness, emotional intelligence and self-management, as well as relationship management. And some quick communication tips, which were really, truly game changers for me when I first learned about these tips. So our agreement, whether again you're present or not, I just really invite you to participate fully. Participation does not necessarily mean you have to speak or share anything. You're welcome to. I'd love for you to respond to me via chat or even speak, but just really being present and let me let someone in, and really being present and seeing how this content can support you with some of the goals that you have. And so I'd like you to use the Zoom feature to raise your hand to ask questions. And if you want to ask a question verbally, if not, you can put it in the chat, and I'll do my best to manage all of that so I can respond to you. Also, after the workshop, if you have any questions, any clarifications, you're welcome to email me at the email that I have listed here. Okay, so now let's get started. How you can listen to and participate to today's presentation so that it's of value for you. Generally, all of us as human beings, we have a tendency that when we listen through our preconceived ideas and experiences. And sometimes we miss information because we start either deleting information that's coming in because we tell ourselves, oh, I already know this. I already know what she's going to talk about. I've taken a workshop before about this topic. So, and sometimes what that does, it actually limits us from being fully present and taking in all the information that we could benefit from. So for some of you, you may have come here today with some ideas about emotional intelligence or communication, or maybe you've done some other workshops through this avenue before. And that's great. And as we move forward, I will ask you to put all those preconceived ideas you have and the things you tell yourself that you already know aside, and really be fully present and listen to today's presentation with only one thing in your mind, and that's you, your life, some of the things that you're interested in accomplishing as we're kind of getting out of this pandemic, hopefully, as we're moving forward. and some things maybe that you're dealing with that are difficult for you right now. So I'd like you to focus on that. And before I go on, I know, Rosie, you're the only one that's showing your camera. I don't know if that means you're open to participate or willing to participate.
I can participate.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll just ask you, since you're the only one that I can see. Of course, the rest, I don't have to see you. You're welcome to participate as well. So can you tell me one thing that you're interested in accomplishing right now in your life, or something that's kind of difficult that you're dealing with?
What I'm focusing on right now is trying to practice to become a supervisor, get myself more prepared. So when an opportunity comes to apply, I have all the knowledge that I need to know to prepare myself for that interview and also for the assessment. That's what I'm working on right now.
Okay. A specific field, supervisor in a specific field, or
I normally,
role?
yeah, I supervisor role, but I do the family advocacy and welfare to work and housing support.
Okay.
So somewhere in that area. I just
Great.
love helping clients. So.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. All right. Okay, thank you, Rosie. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So keep that in mind as I continue to share some of these concepts. See how it can add benefits to your goal. Okay. Anyone else would like to share? Again, you can use the chat feature, or you can share something you're dealing with or something you're interested in accomplishing. Okay, so those of you who are watching this, I want you to think about something as well. Something you're dealing with, something you're interested in accomplishing. Just kind of make a mental note of that as we continue and see how this stuff can support you. So Rosie, interestingly enough, I actually started my career as a welfare to work case manager for the city of Glendale. It was when the welfare reform happened in I think that was 1999. I was fresh out of college, and so I started working as a case manager. And I had a lot of stress. I mean, just my life story is like, from a very young age, I've immigrated twice from two different countries where I had to adjust, learn the language, learn to kind of submit to the new lifestyle, right? And everything that comes with that. And so just growing up, I dealt with a lot of stress. I dealt with depression. I dealt with anxiousness, and it was really tough for me to handle all of that. But I learned to just be in denial and pretend everything is okay, because that's just kind of what we did in my family. Until when I was 23 and I started my professional life, my boss, Jessica, one day she pulled me aside, and she was actually being trained to be a therapist. So she pulled me aside one day and she said, Melina, are you aware that when you're, communicating with your colleagues, or when you're working on something, when you're misunderstood, or something doesn't go the way you had planned or controlled it to go, you react and you get aggressive and angry? Now, of course, it was like super embarrassing for me to hear this from my boss at that moment. But as a teen, I knew that that's how I behaved. I mean, because I didn't know any other way to behave. But when I was a teenager, I got away with it by saying, this is who I am. You like it, you don't tough, right? And I kind of wanted to tell my boss that too at that moment, but I knew that it wasn't going to end well. So so I told her, I said, okay, thank you for sharing this. And she literally straight out told me, she said, I really think you need to work on your anger management, your stress management, and communication. And so I would suggest you, going to therapy and seeking some external help. And I was like, oh my God, like I was so offended. I was like, oh my God, this woman. And, because therapy 20 some years ago, even now, there was a huge stigma. And culturally, for me, there was a stigma around it. I'm of Armenian descent. We don't go to therapy. We don't, it's not stuff we do. It's not part of our upbringing or part of common practice, right? So
or they think you're crazy. Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the stigma, right? You're
Yes.
not crazy, Even when I told my parents, they're like, why? What's wrong with you? We've raised you well. You're not crazy. And I'm like, well, my boss seems to think no, but it wasn't about being crazy. It was about learning coping techniques, right? About how to manage all the stress that was going on in my life. So Long story short, that happened. And then I had a near death experience where it was a huge panic attack. I didn't know it was a panic attack at that point, but there were several like red flags, huge red flags that were happening that was telling me, giving me a message that, okay, you need to do something different than you have been doing to be able to manage yourself. So that's what led me to meet Dr. K at ARC Family Center, which is a local nonprofit here in Glendale, California. And I met him and he told me about this seminar that he had. It was called Curriculum for Awakening. And he said, if you're a social worker or in any sort of service field, this would be an ideal seminar for you. Again, I was skeptical. I'm like, I don't need a seminar. I have a degree, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but something in my gut told me to go and do this program. So I did. And that's when my life started shifting. I mean, some of the insights I started gaining, awareness, and it was all connected to emotional intelligence. And I realized that I lacked in my emotional intelligence levels. It's like all of my life was focused on always, you know, advancing academically or being smart. But I realized after that workshop that there's different kinds of smarts. There is a academic smart, but there's also soft skills that we need to survive in the current workforce and always in relationships and so forth. So today I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to dive into that other kind of smart, the emotional intelligence piece, which I always say IQ or certificates that you have get you the job, but EI, emotional intelligence, gets you promoted. Okay. Because a lot of the workplaces, they require some sort of a degree. But EI, emotional intelligence, is so crucial. So as I move forward, whoever's participating either live with me now or watching this later, if you could just really quickly put down a goal. What is a goal you have? Like, set an intention, like, okay, what do I want to get? Like, where am I struggling right now in my life when it comes to my relationships, my communication? You know, do you take things personal? Do you lack confidence? Like, just set a personal goal for yourself. Again, this will support you to be more present and more with a lot more intention. So write that down as I continue to present this topic, and so you can get some more detailed information on that. So there is a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I have personally not read this book. I don't do well with reading. For me, everything is very experiential. So I like to either I participate in very hands-on seminars, and that's how I end up creating my workshops as well. But I wanted to put this out there that it is available. There is a test that you can take that this book offers at the end, where you can kind of have an understanding of your emotional intelligence level and what aspects of it you need to enhance. And the other source I've used is I created a emotional intelligence train the trainer manual, which I've trained many professionals how to be facilitators of, you know, emotional intelligence training. So I've used some of that content from my book as well. So what is emotional intelligence? I mean, what is this different smart that we're talking about? It actually is a part of our life that it affects all of us. It affects all of our aspects of our life. And understanding, and it's really understanding and becoming aware of our own emotions and how we can manage them. How do we manage them? How can we manage them better? And also identify them so that we can manage our, you know, interactions and our reactions to things. Why is EI important? Um, it helps us to manage change well, which there's a lot of change coming up for all of us. We have been in constant change for the past year and a half. So it helps you to manage change and your emotional impulses. It allows you to understand another's perspective, because sometimes we get caught up in what's happening to us. We don't understand that, okay, what could possibly be going on in other people that we're in relationship with, and how can we you know, improve that. It allows EI is important for communication and how we handle relationships, how we respond to situations, and how we solve problems, as well as it allows us to regulate our emotions and make good decisions. Because when we're making decisions purely based on our emotions, sometimes we make the wrong decisions that then end up costing us. Um, EI is also good for your health, because when we are not able to manage our stressors, our emotions, it causes chronic distress. I mean, and that's when we're, susceptible to more, diseases and sickness, and just not feeling healthy. Also, it wears down our immune system, and we're constantly, when we don't have the right management skills, and that's exactly where I was, we're constantly in fight and flight mode, which is survival mode, where we're just purely surviving. We're not living, and we're not thriving. We're just surviving every day, like autopilot, like robotic life. So that's why with increased EI, we're able to get out of the fight flight, because we're able to kind of identify where we're at and learn how to manage it. What does it look like? I mean, people say, well, like, how do people behave that have low EI and high EI? People with low EI, I mean, if you can see all this, like aggressive, demanding, bossy, they're confrontational, selfish, easily distracted. They have resistant to change, unresponsive, and that includes with communication, stubborn, critical, hard to please, and they're perfectionist. Now, I know none of you that are listening to this fall in this category, but I'm sure you know someone who does. And you know what? I actually, in the beginning of my career, I had almost a lot. I could probably say I probably just wasn't slow, but a lot of the other things checked off for me. This is how I showed up. And selfish wasn't there for me either. But everything else fully there. What in my 20 some years ago when I first started in my career. And people with high EI, they're more assertive, they're strong-willed, they're warm, charming, patient, they're predictable. They're not going to have these like massive outbursts or changes in their mood or behavior. It's like the relationship is more manageable. They're good listeners, detailed, systematic, and so forth. So this is what it looks like. So even by looking at this, you may be able to like, yeah, I have some of the EI stuff, the low EI stuff, but I have some of the high EI stuff. Now, this is, it's not about good or bad, right or wrong. It's just what is. And it's not about one is better than the other. It's just, you need to be able to assess and gain enough awareness, say, okay, what is working for me? If I'm showing, like for me, when I was showing up with low EI, my life wasn't working for me. My relationship with my clients weren't as successful. I wasn't producing as much, not only income, but results as I wanted. So bottom line is that we need emotional intelligence to succeed at work and in relationships and just in life, because it is part of our entire personality. Okay. The good news is that once you train your brain by repeatedly using EI strategies, which I'm going to share some with you today, your behaviors, the new EI behaviors become habits. So people say, can we change? I usually don't talk about that. This is about us having to change. What I always say is that the analogy I like to use is like, if we can look at ourselves as if we were looking at one of those old TV monitors, and those old TV monitors had knobs on them, right? So I just imagine this, like, it's like you're looking in that TV monitor, and what you see in there, which is you, right? There's aspects of you that are just not working. Maybe the way you communicate, maybe the way you react to things, maybe how you are always thinking people are after to get you, and these were some of the things that were real for me. I didn't trust people, and there were so many layers of that was going on for me. And so uh and so you're looking on that monitor and you're seeing all these aspects of you, And the way I coach people and the way I do this work is like, let's take a look at ourselves in that monitor, and the things that we don't like. It's like, let's take responsibility of taking those knobs into our own hands and tweak it a little bit so that what we see on that screen is what we want to see. It's the version of us that we're comfortable with and that we want to see. Whether we're a supervisor, whether we're a daughter, it depends on whatever role we play. So that's really the work that I do, because when people tell me, oh, you need to be open to change, and change for me was pack up your suitcase, sell everything you've ever owned, we're moving to a different country. So for me, change is not, I don't embrace it with open arms. There's a lot of fear behind it. There's a lot of unknown behind it. So that's why I like to always say, okay, we're just doing some little shifts and some tweaking so that we can uh, you know be our better version of ourselves. Now, emotional intelligence is comprised of the following characteristics and abilities. Once we're able to, master these more, that's where when we know that our EI is increasing, our EI levels are increasing. Self-awareness is key when it comes to emotional intelligence. How aware are you of yourself, how you're speaking to people, the tone you're using, the body language, the mood that you show up with. Are you aware of what you're feeling at any given moment after you've maybe driven in traffic to get to work? Like, are you able to check in and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now? So it's a lot of being aware of your emotions and recognizing them. This is something that I lacked, because for me growing up, I was only comfortable with saying my happy emotions. Oh, everything's great, I'm happy. But there were many times that I wasn't happy, that I was sad, that I was puzzled, that I was confused, but I didn't even have vocabulary to use to recognize those emotions. Some of the other things that are important: self-motivation, mood management, managing relationships, empathy, being able to put yourself in other people's shoes and really be able to empathize what they're going through, forgiveness, and making healthy choices. Now, these are all characteristics and abilities that someone with high level of emotional intelligence possesses and also consistently works on. Why is it important? What are the top benefits? Your relationships improve. I mean, there's, I'll share my own personal story with my relationships with my clients, how they improved after I started, increasing my self-awareness, after I became aware of the tone I was using with my clients. Self-confidence goes up because you feel more comfortable in your own skin. You're comfortable with yourself. You're comfortable with your expression. You give yourself permission to be you versus like being, not grounded in yourself. Personal productivity increases because when you learn to manage your emotions are not hijacking you all the time. I am going to do a workshop on emotional hijack. I think it's my last workshop that I do in December with this organization, where I talk about how we get emotionally hijacked and how that affects us and our productivity. We are able to let go of resentment and regret and not constantly live in the past, because when we're living in the past and thinking about the past and what could have been, what should have been, that's actually putting ourselves in depressive states. And actually when we're thinking about the future constantly, that puts us in anxious states. So we want to be able to manage our past relationships and anger and pain so that we can be more in the present moment. Compassion and cooperation goes up, conflicts goes down, the ability to make decisions without doubt, and happiness and peace of mind. Now, who wouldn't want these, right? I mean, like when you look at this list, you're like, yeah, I want some of that. And really, this stuff doesn't come from outside. When the pandemic happened, everybody was like, oh my God, we can't do our regular life anymore. There was a part of me that I was actually embracing the pandemic, in the sense, of course, not the losses of lives and stuff. I mean, that was, of course, devastating. It was the part that now that people weren't busy in going out, they were forced to go in. They were forced to kind of be with them and kind of take a look at. And so, and and a lot of my clients struggled with that because now they weren't busy focusing on other stuff. Now they had to focus on themselves. And a lot of amazing healing happened in this process for me and including my clients. So why is EQ? I use EQ and EI interchangeably. So if you see EQ and EI, it's the same thing. Um, why is EQ important in the workplace? Because an employee's makeup, which is emotions and their ability to manage them, level of emotional intelligence and communication skill are part of whether or not the business was going to be successful or not. That's why I always say EQ gets you promoted. IQ may get you in, but EQ gets you promoted because this is all who you are and your makeup of that. So I always, I talked just a minute ago about personal responsibility of like taking the responsibility of tweaking our own behaviors or, what we want to see different in our life, what we want to see, where we want to see a shift. And it really does take a personal level of personal responsibility. And that was a new thing for me when I started learning about emotional intelligence, because I was one of those people that just blamed. If my life was tough, if I wasn't being noticed by my boss, it was always blaming, oh, she, he, or, my parents, why they bring me to the States when I was 13, I didn't grow up here. Like I didn't know how to take personal responsibility. And that was a game changer for me. When I said, okay, if there are things in my life that I'm not happy with, what can I do instead of like sit and wait for a miracle or magic to happen? What role can I play? And that's really what I always ask people when they're doing any sort of workshop with me. It's like, what are you willing to take responsibility for so that you can see the shift you'd like to see in your life? Okay. And I want you to think about that for a minute. Okay, what am I willing to take responsibility for? Am I willing to take responsibility for my behavior? Am I willing to take responsibility for my own emotional imbalances, my sadness, my depression, so that I can get through it? Or do I want to sit and blame? It's an important question to ask yourself. Now, let's talk about the 4 skills that make up emotional intelligence. I want to just check on my time. Okay, so we're at 30 minutes now. Okay. So the 4 skills that make up emotional intelligence. By the way, before I go on, Rosie, any questions you have or any of the other people? Okay. Because I know that I can just keep talking and I want to address any questions that people may have. So so the 4 skills that make up emotional intelligence are personal competence and social competence. And what this breaks down to is self-awareness and self-management, which I've been mentioning a little bit throughout the presentation, and social awareness and relationship management. Now, what does that look like? I'm just going to give you like quick insights of this. So self-awareness, I don't know if you, whoever is participating has seen the movie when Devil Loves Prada. Is, if you have, you probably can remember Miranda's behavior in that. I mean, she was a successful boss. So people always argue with me. They're like, yeah, but she was successful. She made a lot of money. Yeah, I agree. She was successful, but only one aspect of her was successful. The other, she didn't have any relationships. She was alone. So it really all depends what your personal goals are in life. I just started coaching a CEO of a huge company. I mean, he brings in $100 million a year. And he was telling me yesterday when we were talking, he said, I don't like who I have become. When I first started, with my job and my career, my company, I wanted to help people. But now I've reached a point where I'm bitter. I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to be around people, because he disconnected from his humanity, like his emotional intelligence literally went super down because he is now just focusing on ego and money. And he's like, I'm miserable. And that's kind of like what self-awareness is about, is to be aware of, okay, how are we showing up in life? What are we doing that's creating the outcomes? And so that's what it looks like. In Miranda's case, like her stress and sense of urgency are projected and pushed on other people. She sometimes comes across defensive and aggressive. So that's when you're not aware of what's going on with you to identify it, you project it on other people, you blame other people. And then how it can, someone with a higher level of EI looks like is during, challenging situations. Maria is very aware of her tone and makes an effort to make conversation appropriate. People here trust her. And this was a huge for me as a case manager of a welfare to work program 20 some years ago. When my clients would come, I had a 50 case load. I had never been a case manager. So I couldn't even manage my own life. And here I was having to manage other people's life and get them into, the workforce and into self-sufficiency. And I wasn't aware of this until I took the training, how my tone was with my clients. I would do things like, oh, you didn't do this paperwork again? Stupid, right? I'm not saying it, but are they hearing it? You bet. Now, I'm thinking, oh, I'm a wonderful case manager. In my ego, my head, I'm like, oh, I have good intentions. I want to make a difference in people's lives. I mean, that's why I went into the work. But my stress levels, my anxiety, my inability to manage my own emotions, I was projecting them on my clients. So when they didn't do the paperwork they needed to do, that means my work would back up, and so I was projecting it on them. After my training, I realized how I was speaking to my clients. And it was just a very, like I said, like it was like just a little tweak in my communication. So instead of saying, oh, you didn't do this again, or, oh, how many times do we have to go over this paperwork? It was like, tell me what is challenging for you about this paperwork so I can support you. It's a little tweak, but it made a whole lot of difference. And my first year as a case manager, I thought, oh my God, I'm so wonderful. I'm going to get so many gifts. People are going to send, we didn't have any policies at that point of not accepting gifts and stuff. So I was like, oh my God, my office is going to be full of cards. I mean, talk about huge ego. And that's actually one aspect of low levels of emotional intelligence, is when your ego is huge and self-awareness about yourself is very small. And I didn't get much that year. I probably got like a card here and there. I probably did impact one family's life. But after my EI training and the realizations I had and the shifts that I made, that year my office was full of gifts and cards. But you know what, at that point it didn't matter anymore, because now I knew that I was aligned with who I really wanted to be inside me, and my external behavior was matching that. So that's why self-awareness is crucial when it comes to EI. I've been saying this all along: IQ gets you hired, EQ gets you promoted, because it's about the soft skills. How to increase your self-awareness. Here are some tips of how to do it. I don't have these as a handout, but feel free to take a picture of it if you want. Whoever's watching this, you're welcome to take pictures of the slides. But these are some things you can do to increase your self-awareness. And the first thing I did, and that's why it's number one for me on this list, is I quit treating my feelings as good or bad. I was like, oh, it's not good if I'm feeling this way. Oh, it's bad if I just said, this is what I'm feeling. I had to be able to learn to acknowledge that. All right. The other component of the personal competence is self-management. How you manage yourself in tough situations, how you respond to people, how you, even this could be verbally and also in email. I mean, I know my clients, sometimes they send me messages or texts that they want to send to their boss or boyfriend or whatever, and they're like, and it's all like and you did this. There's no personal responsibility. So I often, part of my coaching is I edit emails and I coach them how to communicate so that they get the outcomes that they want. So yeah, this is another component of that's really important: self-management. I love this thing. It says, I have to work all day long and look at you. This is the brain. And then the heart says, that's because humans think IQ is more important than emotional intelligence. I'm biased about this. So anytime I see little things about how to increase our EQ, I promote it. So how to increase our personal management, our self-management skills, deep breathing, creating motion versus reason list. These are all, again, feel free to take a picture of it. Be aware of your self-talk. This is something I practiced a lot. I started like paying attention to like, what am I thinking in my head all the time? All right, the other component of EI is the social competence piece, which is social awareness. Craig needs to allow others to feel good about their ideas, even when he has a better plan. It would be good if he listened more before speaking his opinion. And this is about even me when we would have case manager meetings. It's like, because I was insecure and I wasn't like grounded in my role and in myself, like I talked all the time, and I wanted people to accept my opinions about things, but it wasn't always the case. And when they didn't, I would react. But so this is important. How does a person with a higher level of EI look like, and how do they manage social awareness? Is that they're able to relate to people, and they have empathy. That's an important piece when it comes to EI. So how to increase our social awareness. Again, here are some things that you can, some tips that you can do to increase your personal awareness. Hi John, welcome. I know we're about 30 minutes into the session, but I want to welcome you and hope you reap some benefits from whatever's left over. And if you're not going to be speaking, if I can ask you to mute yourself, please. Thank you. All right, so this is tips of how to, again, you're welcome to take pictures of the slides so that you can get some of these tips in for you. All right, now the next piece is relationship management. That is important, is another other component of how to increase our emotional intelligence. What does that look like? Natalie always reacts rather than respond. I mean, how often does that happen to us? We're like responding, we react to things versus like take in the situation, process it, check in with ourselves. What emotions does this bring up in me? And then responding to it versus reacting to it emotionally. And then sometimes those reactions get us in deeper trouble because now we have to go apologize or we feel bad. I mean, it's a mess, right? But how does someone with a higher EI level operate? Is they know their colleagues well. They are able to handle conflicts in a calm and positive manner, and communication, and how to communicate, how to acknowledge that this situation maybe is bringing up certain emotions in me, and I can see that this is upsetting you. This happened to me at work. I had a staff member. This is when I didn't own my own business and I worked for the city. I had a staff member that one day came to me and he said, it was a Monday, and he said, "You know what, Melina, I don't like when you do this to me." And he literally, this is exactly what he did. And I said, "Oh," and I'll leave the person's name confidential. I'll just call him Alan. I said, "Oh, Alan, I'm so sorry. Like, what happened?" And he's like, "I turned in my timesheet. I didn't need to get an email from you telling me to turn in my timesheet." I'm like, "Well, I sent the email out to everyone. But you know what?" And I said, "Alan, I'm really sorry. I can see that you're really upset and angry." And he said, "I'm not upset. I'm not angry." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I mean, that's what I'm experiencing. It's okay. I'm going to read my email again and see what did I say in that email that could have affected you." Now, Alan was from a different generation. He was in his 80s. I mean, when he was working for me. And so there were a lot of things that I considered, and I didn't take it personal. I didn't take his behavior personal. But the thing is that it didn't almost matter what I did. Because I may not have had that intention. But what was important for me, that Alan was affected by something that happened. So anyway, and one of the things that I've been talking about is I took responsibility. I said, I can understand how an email to everyone may have, and you are always responsible. Yes, you turn in your timesheet, but I can see how that email could have affected you. 2 days later, he came and he apologized to me, and he said, "I'm sorry, I overreacted and that was not appropriate," and so forth. John, you're saying I cannot hear anything. I just have the video up. you may have to, did you say join audio when you joined the workshop? Because that's what happens on Zoom when you first join. It says join audio. Because I see your mic is there and I could hear you, but it could be something on your part that you're not able to hear me. I'm sorry. But this video will be available and you can watch it later on the Santa Barbara job site. Again, I'm sorry that you're not able to hear me. So how to increase relationship management skills. These are, again, some tips. Feel free to take a picture of it if you'd like so that you can practice some of these. Even if you commit to one item on this list, you've started your journey of increasing your EI. Any questions before I review some communication tips? Okay. So let's talk about communication. And why communication is important, because that's sometimes the only way people really get to know who we are when we're verbally communicating, and also they get to know who we are even when we're not verbally communicating. And I'll tell you, I'll share this research that was done of why communication is not just verbal, right? It's also nonverbal communication. Better communication with others. You know, it's interesting with communication, people say, but I know all the words in the, English language. I can construct sentences. Why am I still misunderstood? Or why, why is there so much misunderstandings when it comes to communication? There's many factors for that, which I may be talking about a little bit. John, you're okay now? You can hear me? Yeah? Oh, he still can't hear. Okay. So effective communication, the foundation of it's the foundation of emotional intelligence, how we communicate with ourselves, which means part of that acknowledgement, part of like taking responsibility, our internal dialogue with ourselves, and how we also communicate with others. And they're, like I said, they're verbal and nonverbal and body language. So communication, for the better part of every day, we are communicating to and with others, whether it's the speech you deliver in the boardroom, the level of attention you give your family and spouse when they are talking to you, or the look that you give to your cat or dog. It all means something. We all give it meaning. So how do we communicate? Like I mentioned earlier, we have verbal communication. It's what you are saying. And then there's paraverbal. It's what is how you say it.
Hey, buddy, I'm trying to be on today's.
Okay. All right, I needed to mute him. Paraverbal, this is how you say it, your tone, your speed, your pitch, and volume. All of that is key when it comes to communication. So again, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Okay. And I actually have like direct experience with this with one of my clients who was a recent refugee. This is again a 20-year story. She didn't speak English. I mean, honestly, she did not speak the language. She maybe knew hello, how are you? Like that's all she knew. She had just come to the States, and she came to me and she said, Ross for Less is hiring, and I applied and I got an interview. I said, okay. And she goes, but how can I do an interview? I don't speak the language. Like, what am I going to do? And immediately I remembered this knowledge that communication is not just what you say. It's either how you say it and how you behave, how your body language is, and so forth. So this is the technique I used with her, which is this study that was done, understanding. His name is Albert Mehrabian. He did a study in 1971 about communication. And in his study, he discovered that only 7% of what we say matters. So verbal, when it comes to communication, 7% of our words matter. 38% is our tone, and 55% is our body language, our facial gestures, how we stand, how we're sitting, how we're looking at people, how are our eyebrows, where are our eye contact. I mean, that's a significant amount. And this is exactly what I had to increase my awareness about, because with my words, I thought I was being kind to my clients, but my tone and my body language weren't saying the same thing. So one of the other tweaks that I did with my clients that increased my success was I noticed that my chair was always higher than the chair that my clients would sit on. And so I was, talk about body language, I was always kind of looking down at them. It's like I was higher than them. And honestly, when I learned about this and I really started studying this and human behavior, because I was intrigued by this knowledge and I wanted to be the best version of me. All I did is I brought my chair down to eye level with my clients. And I can't even tell you what a significant difference that made for me. Okay. Where I was able to just, I mean, with my clients, now they felt that we're on the same level, right? Again, very quick, very small, like change or shift in my body language, but it made a huge impact. And also, I already shared with my tone how my tone, shifting my tone, impacted my relationship with my clients. So again, when it comes to body language, it's how are we standing? How are we looking at people? Are we looking up? Are we looking down? Do we have our hands crossed? Usually hands crossed gives this notion of defense, being defensive. Some people go, no, I'm just cold, and that's okay. But when it comes to communication, most of the time that's the impression that it gives. And your facial expression. So like I became aware of how sometimes disconnected my face was from what I was really feeling. And my face would show a completely different expression than what I was feeling inside. And I became aware of this again during the same time when I was training to be, better at managing my emotions. I had gone to a city council meeting, and city council meetings are usually recorded, and I happened to be sitting in an area where the camera was right on me. And people had told me before that I wasn't always approachable, that people were kind of intimidated to approach me. And I would be like, why? Like, I'm a nice person. Like no need to be intimidated, right? But I was not aware of how my face was. And that's what people were scared of. So when I was at that council meeting and I was sitting and I watched the council meeting later, honestly, the face I had, I would not have approached myself either. I looked scary. So when I'm concentrated and I'm not smiling, which by the way, I have worked a lot on loosening up my muscles in my face so that I can smile, but my natural conditioning, how I was always very like stoic and very like concentrated. So when people looked at me like this, right, they're like, whoa, we're not going to approach her. She doesn't look pleasant. So that was one shift I realized and I made, where I started and I studied. I'm like, okay, how do I increase how do I become more aware of my facial expressions? So I started putting a mirror by my in my office. Always had a mirror, and I would look at myself and I would like practice smiling, and I would be aware of my eyebrows. And even now when I talk to people, and now it's different because I'm on Zoom, I can see myself so that I can shift it. But when I had my clients, let's say in person, I would tell them sometimes like, oh, I may be showing this. This is just like I'm concentrating. It's not, I had to explain it so that people didn't take it personal, because I understand this is very valuable. This is huge when it comes to communication. Nonverbal communication, there's, like I said, more to communication than the words one speaks. or message being conveyed. There are also nonverbal cues that we use in everyday conversations, with our tone. And it also happens in emails, and it also happens in texts. So being mindful of the signals you send others through your body language and the way you speak may get your point across a lot faster than your mere words. So I, like, again, this is why I started practicing this a lot. So, this is all great knowledge. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. And willing is not enough. We must do. And I really believe this, because this truly became my practice, where I realized that all of this EI stuff didn't come naturally to me. I didn't grow up with it. I needed to work on it. I needed to practice it. So even now, I make a personal goal, and I say, okay, what is something that I want to, what are some areas that I want to improve on? Because as someone who practices kind of observation of self and increase my self-awareness, there's always something that happens and I'm like, ooh, I sounded like this in this conversation, or I didn't pay attention to my boyfriend when he was telling me the story, or I was kind of rushing it, whatever it is. So it's important to set a personal goal. And that's what I invite you to do now. It's like setting a clear goal, you know. Forget this example. This is from my stress workshop. I just realized I didn't change it, but you can put a different example. I'll give you a different example. But so setting goal is important, okay? Of how are you going to, if any of this made sense to you, and if you're someone who relationships are important to you, Rosie, I know you're the only one who shared, you're working on, getting promoted and being in a supervisory role. And that actually is going to involve human relations, right? Understanding people, how you react to someone who's late all the time, how you, when there's misunderstandings with communication or tasks. I remember I had a staff member while I was going through these kinds of trainings. She was consistently late, and it was like bugging me so much. And the old me, the not developed emotional intelligence me, I just wanted to go and say, you can't do this. I'm going to write you up. Like, you can't show up to late all the time. You're not even communicating with me. Like, I wanted to blame, right? And then I said, okay, that's one approach. But I had made a commitment to myself that I wanted to show up the best version of me. So as her supervisor, how else can I show up? Because probably everybody else shows up like that in her life. This is probably something that happens to her. So I brought her in and I said, I've noticed that, the past week, there's been several days where you've been late. What's going on? Is there something going on in your life that's causing you to be late? So I applied the empathy that I had learned through EI. I applied, my commitment of wanting to be best version of me. And she said, you know what, Melina, I'm so sorry. Yeah, my babysitter, I'm having issues, my ex-husband. I mean, she told me the story, and I said, I'm sorry you're going through that. And what can you do to improve this? Because if you continue this way, policy wise, I mean, I'm going to have to give you a written warning and so forth. And she said, give me a couple days. I'm working on it. And I'm sorry for not communicating. And it was done. I showed up the version I wanted to show up. I was empathetic enough to understand what was going on in her life. And this problem was solved. Now, I appreciate that knowledge. I'm glad I didn't show up the other version that I could have shown up. So what I want to invite you to do, as we're going to end this session now, is set a clear goal. Like, what is it that you want to do? Maybe there's one thing from, from the list that I provided, earlier when it talks about, emotional awareness. I'm going to just put that back up here really quickly. Maybe like there's something from this list that you say, you know what, I want to lean into my discomfort. I want to sit with my uncomfortable feelings, which is not something people are willing to do. But that's the only way to get, become a better version of us, to heal through our emotions. But maybe there's observe yourself. Maybe you want to become more of an observer of yourself. Find one thing. I'll just stick to this list. Find one thing from this list that you're willing to do for the next, make a commitment for the next week. I'm gonna, you know, pay more attention to this. I'm going to, understand what causes me stressors. I'm going to, I'm gonna see if I can find a way to describe my feelings or describe what's going on for me. So just make a goal and apply it. And I hope that this again, I said this is a long training that I usually do with a lot of engagement and a lot of interaction. I know that didn't happen today, but I still hope that you found some valuable information that you can apply and work through so that you can work on increasing your emotional intelligence and truly becoming becoming a master at managing your own emotions and also managing your relationships, because that's key to success. That's when we're not happy in our relationships, any relationships, as human beings, we're miserable, and relationships are important, and we play an important role in that. So with that, I end my talk. I'm open to answer any questions that anybody may have. And if not, I thank you. And I just wanted to share this with you, that the Santa Barbara County America Job Center, they have a survey that they ask people to do. So if you want to provide some feedback for the workshop and things, what you liked, what you disliked, what can improve, feel free to go to this site and do your survey. Rosie, I see
Yeah.
your mic is open. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the training, and also I heard when you said about how when we cross our hands. I do that sometimes, like with my neighbors, but I don't mean to. I'm not defensive because I'm laughing with them. But now you have me thinking like, oh my God, all this time my mom is standing it. So now I'm gonna watch myself.
Yeah. Rosie, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. If you can just really increasing self-awareness about yourself is like the best gift you can give yourself, to become more of an observer of how you're talking, how your tone is, what you're saying, what's your body language. Because even in an interview setting, when you're interviewing for that supervisory role, you may know all the, like I had a person who was in the library. She was a librarian and she was applying to go on a higher level librarian position. And she was so knowledgeable. I mean, she was the ideal candidate for this position. And she lacked in her expression. She didn't know how to express herself so that she could bring all that knowledge that she had in her presentation. So we did like intensive coaching with her for like 8 weeks, where I worked on all these techniques that I'm talking about, EI, communication, and she got the job. And she was shocked because she was like, she had applied for other jobs prior to that and hadn't gotten it because she was only using her intellect of what she knew as a librarian. And she was like, that's all that you need. But the soft skill component was important. And that's why I'm passionate about this work, because the soft skill component, which is the emotional intelligence, is key to the next level of success you want to reach. So I'm glad that you were here, and I hope that it added some value for you.
Do you have like a tip for me? Because I'm going to do a mock interview, and I've been preparing myself and writing stuff, but it's only 3 minutes. So
yeah, listen, I'm going to put my email
okay.
and my phone number in the chat.
Okay.
Call me. I'd be happy to give you some tips.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Yeah. So here's my phone number, and here's my email. I'd be happy to do that. coachmom@gmail.com. Yeah, write that down and connect with me. I do have a client right after this at 2:30 now. But after that, after like 3:30, if you want to talk today, feel free to text me or call me. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm gonna stop recording and I'm gonna stop sharing. Great. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
All right.